maxillary premolar, the average length of this tooth is 21.5 mm. The pulp chamber of the maxillary first premolar is narrow mesiodistally. It has a pulp horn under each cusp, but both may be missed in routine radiographic projection because of the superimposition of one over the other, and it is wide buccopalatally, and buccal pulp horn is more prominent than the palatal in the young teeth. The roof of the pulp chamber is coronal to the cervical line. The floor of the pulp chamber is convex, usually with two canal orifices, one buccal and the other palatal, and it lies deep in the coronal third of the root below the cervical line. In cross section, the pulp chamber is wide and ovoid in the buccopalatal dimension. Root and root canals. The maxillary first premolar has two roots in 54.6% of the cases. In 21.9% of the double-rooted cases, the roots are separated, whereas in 32.7% of the roots are partially fused. Of the total cases in this study, 43% have one root and 2.4% have three roots. When two roots are present, they may diverge as much as 25% from each other. Regardless of whether maxillary first premolar have one or two roots, they have two root canals at the apex in 69% of the cases. When fused roots occur, a groove running in an occluso-apical direction divides the root into the buccal and the palatal portion, each containing a single root canal. The palatal canal is generally the larger of the two canals. It is directly under the palatal cusp, and its orifices can be penetrated by following the palatal wall of the pulp chamber. The buccal canal is directly under the buccal cusp, and its orifice can be penetrated by following the buccal wall of the pulp chamber. 26% of these teeth have only a single root canal at the apex. Of these 26%, only 8% have one canal orifice at the pulp chamber and one canal exiting at the apex, whereas 18% have two orifices in the pulp chamber floor that coalesce to form a single canal at the apex. Transverse channels between the canals are common. In tooth with a single canal through the length of the root, the canal is ovoid in shape, wide buccopalatally, then mesiodistally in the cervical middle thirds and round in the apical thirds. When two root canals are present, the cervical thirds are ovoid in shape. At mid-root they are almost round, and in the apical third they are round and small. Lateral canals may be present in 49.5% of the cases, with 11% found in the furcation between the buccal and the palatal roots. In teeth with a single root, the majority of the roots are straight. Almost an equal number have a distal curve, and some curve buccally, palatally, or have an S or bayonet shape. In double-rooted maxillary premolars, the buccal roots are straight. In 27.8% have a buccal curve, in 14% have a palatal curve, in 36% have a distal curve, in 14% have an S or bayonet shape in 8% of the cases. The palatal roots are straight, in 44.4% have a buccal curve, in 70 27.8%, have a palatal curve in 8.3%, and have a distal curve in 14%, and have an S and bayonet shape in 5.5% of the cases. The apical foramina are centrally located in 12% of the cases, and apical delta is present only in 3.2% of the cases. Anatomical relationships in situ: the maxillary first premolar lies in its alveolar socket below the maxillary sinus and is separated from it by a thin layer of spongy and compact bone. The buccal surface of single or double rooted maxillary first premolar is in close proximity to the buccal cortical plate. The proximity of these roots to the cortical plate may produce a fenestration or dehiscence in that plate. The palatal root of the double-rooted specimen lies in spongy bone away from the palatal cortical plate. The maxillary first premolar has an average of 10 degree of distoaxial inclination, an average of 6 degree of buccoaxial angulation in its alveolus. Now assess opening by measuring the shape, the size and the extension of the pulp chamber mesially, distally and coronally. In the diagnostic radiograph, one can determine the approximate size, shape, depth and location of the coronal assessed cavity to be prepared. The internal anatomical structures of the pulp chamber of the maxillary first premolar indicate the shape and size of the access opening. Using a number 2 round burr in a high-speed contrangle, one penetrates the enamel in the center of the occlusal surface between the buccal and the lingual cusp, and the burr is directed into the long axis of the tooth. Then a number 2 round carbide burr aligned in the long axis of the tooth is used to penetrate through the dentine into the pulp chamber. The operator frequently feels the burr drop into the pulp chamber when the chamber is large. Using the radiographic measurement, one penetrates deep enough to remove the roof of the pulp chamber without cutting into the chamber floor. One should avoid an access opening that is too shallow and exposes only the pulp horn tips, which may appear to be the root canal orifices. To remove the roof of the pulp chamber, one should place the burr alongside the walls of the chamber and cut occlusally. A tapered cylinder, self-limiting diamond in a slow-speed contrangle is used to remove the remaining roof of the pulp chamber. The walls of the access cavity are smoothed and are sloped slightly towards the occlusal surface. With this diamond, the divergence of the access cavity walls created a positive seat for the temporary filling such as cavity. The border of this overt access cavity should not extend beyond the half the lingual incline of the facial cusp and half the facial incline of the palatal cusp. The access cavity preparation for endodontic treatment of the premolar differs from the Black's cavity preparation for an occlusal restoration. In Black's preparation, the overt shape runs mesodistally and encompasses all the pits and the fissures, whereas the endodontic preparation runs overt in the buccolingual direction and permits the direct access to the root canal, especially in the buccal and the lingual canal orifices when more than one canal is present. Any loose debris is removed by irrigating the access cavity with a 5.2% of sodium hypochlorite solution. Excess sodium hypochlorite is removed by suction or is absorbed with 2.2 gauge sponge. The pulp chamber should be suction dry to permit the unimpeded observation of the pulpal floor. The anatomical dark lines in the pulp floor means dentinal map should be examined and followed with an endodontic explorer to identify the orifice. The orifice of the buccal canal lies beneath the buccal cusp and the orifice of the palatal canal lies beneath the palatal cusp. And anomalies: the maxillary first premolar in rare cases has 3 root canals.